Glad to have you back. And now moving on with the program, there were claims last week that the refinery, that's the Port Harcourt refinery, there was the back and forth around it, talking about the production, the capacity. Well, many oil experts have come out to say that the status of that refinery, one of those that are saying this is the president of Pengassan, who says the refinery is has indeed commenced operation in full force. It was also quick to mention that the blending process was a normal process globally, as no refinery can produce with a single crude distillation unit. Well, he agreed that Nigerians have every reason to doubt and question the government, but considering what they have suffered in the past. But let's really get to understand all of these issues surrounding this development. Mr. Ademola Adigun is the Chief Executive Officer of AHA Consultancy. Thank you so much. It's good to have you this afternoon, Mr. Adigun.
Thank you very much. Very interesting conversations.
Yes,
we shall have today, I hope.
Yes, so yes, we should. I think we should start with the difference between turnaround maintenance and rehabilitation. I think we need to get a clear cut of what this means. Some Nigerians don't understand what has happened at the Port Harcourt refinery, but you are a player in the industry. Make us understand the difference.
Well, I mean, like you said earlier on in your introduction, I grant the right for Nigerian skepticism. I understand why there's skeptics, I understand why there's a lot of confusion. And it's not because people don't wish government well, but because they've been not been told the truth as it ought to be in previous times. Now, previously, we've done terms, turnaround maintenances for refineries. We spent a lot of money on it. And what happens every time we do that, refineries break down because refineries have more issues, some structural, some management, and some other issues. Now, what they've done now is rehabilitate refineries and some upgrade. So again, bring the refinery in line with modern processes, modern procedures. So it's a different kind of ballgame of saying, let's maintain. So like using a car as an illustration, you have an engine where you go and service, where you change some engine oils or filters. Basically, you're doing some time in a way. But when you now decide to change your engine bore, your engine core, change your shaft and other things, what you're doing is actually a rehabilitation of your engine. So it's a much more deeper process, and it's a much more longer lasting process, which takes time to complete. What has happened again is there's been poor information management. Nigerians have not been carried along in what is actually happening. And so when the issues around were they blending or were they not blending or they refining came along, a lot of people didn't understand it. And I watch a lot of videos on groups I belong to on WhatsApp where a lot of skepticism was done by people. And a lot of times, pardon me, a lot of people spoke from ignorance. And, you know, Nigerians have a challenge. Once they've held on to a belief, there's nothing you will say that they will make them change their belief. When you bring the most educated of people, chemical engineers or whatever engineers, to tell them what actually happens in a refinery, they don't want to listen. So they've held on to their point of view, and they would rather take knowledge from someone that is an ignorant person on the matter. So it's a country where ignorance sells better than information. And I'm not categorizing Nigerians. I'm part of the Nigerian group as well. But it's the way we are in this country, and that's why people are finding it difficult to believe our refinery is operating. Even those who should know better will tell you such stories.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adigun, for that. Indeed, it's very difficult in some cases to convince Nigerians, even when the right thing is being done. So, you know, I think conversations need to be more, people need to communicate more and all of that. But let me move to my next question, and it will be, you talked around blending already, and many analysts have said that's the normal way it's being done, crude processing and all of that. I would like you to also speak to us more on that, and also pricing. Does this have anything to do with pricing as we move on?
Okay, so yes, the first fact is people don't understand the refining process and what makes a refinery a refinery. And because there was some misinformation about some importers having blending plants in Malta and using that to import to Nigeria, which gave Nigerians the impression that blending is illegal, or blending means people are boycotting the process. But anybody who understands how refinery works and the refinery kind of process knows that every time you get crude, after you've done the distillation and others, to get the quality and quantity and the grade of food of products you want, you have to blend. You have to have additives. None of the products from crude is crude itself. So when you've heated, you've got your oil, you've got your others, octane and other things, you have to add things to make it happen. That's what it's called blending. And nowhere in the world does it happen where there's no blending. Blending is part of the refining process. But like I said earlier on, I heard a lot of people, I had basically people explain to them how you do it, how you get things. Even when you even finish all that, you still do the sulfurization, which is also part of the refining process as well. And it's all mixed until you get to the product that you agreed upon for your country. And there are different specifications in the market. So you blend to the percentage is appropriate and acceptable in your country. And that's all the process of how you get your petrol, your kerosene, your paraffin, your other products from crude. But this is part of this misunderstanding Nigerians have. And again, the seeds of misunderstanding were planted many months ago when the campaign was going on between a new refinery and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. And that misinformation not being taken care of at that time has sowed the seeds for the current distrust and misinformation and lack of trust of government's position, which again is earned. Now, about pricing, one of the people I heard was talking about the fact that, oh, if it was done, that the only time you would agree that the refinery is working if it's cheaper and everything. And I've said it earlier on over the years. Local refinery doesn't guarantee cheaper prices. And every time I say, people get very angry. They get very upset about it. They say, what do you mean by that? Or somebody even said in his own education of Nigerians that the cost of bringing it from somewhere, it was a big cost and everything. And I said, look, the percentage of transportation is negligible in refining. Refining efficiencies are not driven by transportation. It's defined by the cost of crude, your foreign exchange rate. It's the way it works. But people don't want to hear this argument. And the people are expecting that because Port Harcourt is producing now, petrol should be 500 naira per liter. Same way they expected Dangote to be 400 naira per liter. And I remember on several programs telling people that it doesn't work that way. It's not a function of where you're refining it. If your refining margins are defined by many other issues, depending by the quality of refining you're doing, defined by the costs of crude oil, is different by the exchange rate. All these are not controlled locally. Your crude cost has an extraction point. At $65, you have optimum cost for refining. Above $65, it becomes more difficult to make profits on refinings. And refiners have to make margins as well. So when people make misinformation and habits and have wrong expectations and it's not corrected, then they now like to stew in ignorance and they make all kind of funny claims. Oh, we only know it's working when we can buy 400. How are you going to buy 400 petrol when it's not driven by local cost? The crude is not free. If the crude was free and government was giving the crude free, then you would have the margin. That's the reason why I was skeptical about when they were talking about the crude for Naira deal, which they had tried with Dangote. And I said, it's not going to make any difference. And people said, oh, why are you saying this? You're being, it doesn't make, it's not a big issue. Whether you give it in Naira or dollars or give it in pounds or whatever currency, there's still the cost are still calculated in dollars. The cost of a rig, the cost of extraction, the cost of transportation, the cost of additives, all come at a denomination. They are not chemicals that you just till the ground and bring up. So nobody should expect that because Port Harcourt is producing, petrol will now be 500 naira per liter. It's not going to happen. It might become cheaper when you add other things. But then the other problem again is we don't have a good logistics support system. So the pipelines are not working efficiently. If they produce in Port Harcourt and they have to sell to Lagos, it's supposed to go by ship. If they're going to sell to other parties, go by ship. The pipelines are not really working. So even that liability some cost, but it's not that big a cost. It's still negligible cost. So Nigerians should focus on what drives cost of a product. It's one, the dollar exchange rate. Two, the cost of crude. And three, international refining margins. And they're not very different in the world. So it's not a big case of, oh, it's Port Harcourt now, oh, it's Dangote now. It doesn't make any difference. And what would reduce would be the cost of distribution, which is not very high.
Well, I think this has set the pace now because government has instructed the NNPCL to go ahead and rehabilitate the second phase or the second segment of the Port Harcourt refinery, also go ahead to Warri, Kaduna, and all of that. Well, my question would be maybe a layman's question. If all the refineries become fully operational and we have Dangote refinery and all of that, what sort of competition would this put up? Or is there any possible positives for us even as a country, just to get some clear understanding? If all the 4 refineries become operational, we still have Dangote refinery also producing. Our crude production is still not where it ought to be. What impact would that have, basically?
Well, let's talk theoretically. First of all, I do not think government should rehabilitate the other refineries. I do not think government has the capacity to run refineries.
Good.
It's something every government learns when they spend 3-4 years. There was a reason why the refineries was sold in the first place by previous governments. And there's a reason why turnaround maintenances from 1993 haven't had any impact. So I do not think government should repair refineries. This is my own personal opinion. And it's based on the fact that the economics of refinery do not make it possible. You already have a problem of supply, of input supply. Dangote, when it's producing at maximum, will take about 600,000 barrels of crude. You've got Port Harcourt, who can do, the other refineries combined together will take another 200,000 as of now, and maybe at full capacity, 485,000 barrels of crude. We don't have that crude. The crude is not available. It's not going to be available tomorrow. It's not available next year. But so theoretically, that won't happen. And I think government should focus on the business of managing what it ought to manage and not allow NNPC to make a decision on refineries on efficiency. One of the biggest problems having challenges in the industry right now is government thinking they can run a business that they don't know how to run. And that's why there's a lot of crisis. And one of the things you've talked about earlier on in your program was reforms. When you're doing reforms, you do reforms completely. It's hand up refineries, give it to people that know how to do it. Let them manage it. Some of them are not competitive, and some of them will never be competitive for many reasons. The issues around supply chains are still there. The issues around distribution are still there. The issues around markets are still there. But again, this is my opinion. Now, back to your question. If all the refineries were working, well, it is good. It's a great thing for Nigeria if all the refineries were working and supplying. What it means is that Nigeria becomes a net exporter of products, and we get more value to Nigerian currency. When you take out a barrel of crude without refining it, you lose a lot of money. For every barrel of crude you take out of the country, you lose up to $1,000 on the barrel because you've not added value to it. The same thing when somebody supplies yam. You know, yam has a value, but yam as pounded yam, the value triples. Yam as chips, the value triples. Yam as flour, the value triples. Anytime you add value to a process, the value triples or quadruples or whatever percentage. So same thing with crude. So having refineries working and supplying Africa or West Africa with products means we earn more money. We have more markets for our crude, and the industry is more efficient, and that is good for Nigeria as a country. But again, there are more challenges that we can face. Would that affect pricing? In some areas, it might. In areas of maybe like kerosene, maybe some extent diesel, maybe to some extent, but petrol marginally, because it's an internationally traded product, and the determinants of the pricing are not locally. And it's never going to happen unless government is subsidizing back again. It won't be that where you buy petrol at 200 naira per liter, 400 naira per liter. And that's why in my own private space, I've campaigned about supporting this CNG. I mean, to the target of my friends who think if you support CNG, government must have paid you. But because I understand that it's not going to get to a point where petrol will be that cheaper again, unless we go back to all this. If the dollar strengthens things very well, and we have price of crude falling to a certain level, then price might become lower. Might become lower. But never in the margin of 500 naira per liter petrol again. That won't happen. Those are gone.
I like that frank talk. Yes, we need to understand where we are headed. We've started with these reforms, and like you said, we must follow it to the latter. Before I let you go, it's always an interesting conversation with you regarding this sector. You talked about the pricing now, and it wants me. That's why I want to ask this question. The argument of if subsidy is totally gone is also still somewhere. I've had analysts come to say, they don't believe it's 100% gone. They still believe that something is still somewhere. And when I ask that question, I like to ask it side by side with expectations from Nigerians with regards to what government is gaining or getting from subsidy removal. Do you think we're totally out of that scheme?
Yeah, that's a very interesting conversation, and I'm glad you asked the question. In one of the videos I watched, which was trying to depict the refinery in Port Harcourt not working, was the argument of saying government said they saved 20 billion, or was it $2 billion from subsidy removal? And people are asking where the money was. Or that if they save that money, why are they borrowing money? And again, this is from ignorance. And I don't blame anybody saying that, because in people's mind, savings means is what you've kept aside. And one of the things I said in my previous engagement with previous governments, when we were advocating for the more subsidy, was don't tell Nigerians you save money, because there's no money to save. Saving money means I planned and I had 10 naira to spend, and I spent 5 naira. That means I have saved 5 naira. So I had 10 naira and I spent 5. I saved 5. You didn't have 10 naira, but you didn't spend 5. You haven't saved money. What you've done is cut waste. So when governments use the language of savings in saying we saved 20 billion from subsidy, Nigerians have a right to ask, where is the money? Well, you haven't saved any money because you never had the money in the first place. All the issues why we were advocating for removal of subsidy was because you were borrowing money to subsidize what you shouldn't subsidize, and there was no impact on Nigerians as it ought to be. And the argument was, rather than waste money and borrow money to continue what you didn't have, don't use that money and don't borrow money to do it. So that's the savings government refers to. So there's really no money to subsidize something that they never had money to subsidize. I don't know if I'm clear about it. So there was no 10 naira that they used to not spend 5 naira. What they were doing before was there was no 10 naira, but they were spending 5 naira borrowed to say it was spending 5 naira to keep something low. So there was really no savings in that way. What you've done is you're not going to spend that money that you never had in the first place. It might sound a little bit funny, but that's the truth of the matter. And so the argument of savings is wrong. Now, if there's still a subsidy on products, there will be a subsidy on products in most cases when you still have attempts at price equalization. I don't think there's anything wrong with subsidy. So people don't get it wrong. You can subsidize what people will gain from that you can afford. Once you can afford things, then there's no problem subsidizing it. Every country has what to subsidize. It may be agriculture, maybe transportation, but you don't subsidize what you can't afford and what's not benefiting most Nigerians and benefiting a few. And that's the messaging that has gone wrong with the whole reform of government. Government has poor communication in supporting its reforms. The communication is always misjudged, misconstrued, and others, and it makes it all laughable. And those who are genuinely invested in supporting reforms don't have a leg to lean on when they don't understand what the government is saying and what it's trying to do. So right now, there is still some subsidy. It's very, very reduced. And I'm not a fan of saying everything should be there. But you can't have a weak naira as you have an unstable naira without some subsidies. Until the naira gets to a stage where, as it has been in the last 5 months, has some stability. At that point in time, then you can really factor in costs, factor in inputs, and then have a good market for your products. That's how it works. And that's something that will take some time. And what I advised earlier on was to say, do the subsidy removal in a phased process. Take some out, take it gradually, but again, I'm not in government. People in government know the wisdom of what they did and why they did it. The other challenge we've had is you don't take out something unless you give something back in return. Now, had CNG been as what it had been before subsidy removal, then people have had an alternative. Now, the CNG campaign for many people now seems hurried and rushed. And again, government again is going by that campaign in a very, very unprofessional manner. You're bringing comedians to come and talk about CNG. You're asking people who are not experts in industry to be your marketing arm of something that is so critical, so volatile, that can impact lives negatively and without any safe contention. What about government demonstration by itself? What about government itself showing the fruit of their cars they converted to CNG? What about some leaders using their cars as examples? What about getting people that are professionals in industry to talk about the whole campaign around it? So your last guest, somebody I respect very much, Master Sam said something about the facing of reform process. So reforms can be good, but properly not faced. So had we done all this before we move subsidy, then we won't be chasing the narrative as we're chasing the narrative right now. And there won't be as much distortion in the economy as it is right now. And there might have been more easier way to explain what the aim of government is. And I totally support of the reforms. I mean, like anybody who, one thing about all of us is we were all pro reforms until we started feeling it. We all said it's not sustainable. We were all part of the campaign saying, look, take out subsidy, reform electricity, unify the naira. We all said it. When you now start betting on all of us, no, you want to kill us. But it's the reality of what we feel and it's human nature. When government again has not properly timed those reforms, is not communicated well enough. It's not supporting it with alternatives. And you can't take something from people, and that's what's missing the whole narrative. Even with the front.
Are you there, Mr. Ademola Adigun? Honestly, this is a very interesting conversation. I've been speaking to the Chief Executive Officer of AHA Consultancy. He joined us from Abuja to make sense of issues around refining and, of course, the entire